Hey everybody, you're listening to What Are You Doing in Denmark, the podcast that helps you make Denmark make sense. My name is Derek Hartman, and I'm so excited to introduce you to a very special guest today. And joining me is Conrad Molden.
Hello.
Brooke Black.
Hi.
And we are so excited to introduce you to a friend of ours and our special guest for our live show, the 100th episode of What Are You Doing in Denmark? Hopefully, you will join us there in Copenhagen at Comedy Zoo on Tuesday, May 6th at 7:30. Welcome to the show, Cecilie Bau.
Hi.
Woo! So excited to meet you and introduce you to our listeners and audience that may not know you already.
Excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
I'm so excited for the show. But first, just to get to know you a little more today.
Yes.
So we know that you are a comedian, you are Danish, so what you're doing in Denmark is pretty obvious.
Yeah, I was actually a bit confused for the invite here. I thought this was like a foreigners podcast.
Yeah.
The answer is going to be so simple. Like, I live here.
Yeah. Okay, well, that one is taken off, so we know...
Yes.
Yeah.
But it could be the what are you doing in Denmark like these days?
Ah.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
just like how did you end up here, but like what are you doing these days?
True, true.
I
It
think
feels so confrontational when you say it like that. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
how about what are you doing? Is it better if I put a little high voice on?
Somehow I don't
No,
feel
not
it
better,
is.
not
I
better,
get,
sorry.
yeah, I get the question. Yeah, I'm doing comedy,
Yeah.
I guess, and watching a lot of TV.
I like
Nice.
that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, so you've been doing comedy for quite a while. I know...
3.5 years now,
years,
yes.
yeah.
Still counting.
How have
Yeah.
you guys known each other? I feel like you've met before, and I would like to know that story as well.
We have. We met at an English open mic in Center Stage, which is a gay bar in Copenhagen, where a drag queen called Lee Precis was hosting. And we were both on that night. I think we were the only actual queer comedians.
I think so.
Yeah. So we kind of linked up.
Yeah.
That time.
Yeah.
We were
See,
like,
I love a good
see
origin
you.
story.
This is more about us.
I think you
Yeah.
did jokes about Taylor Swift or something, and I was drawn to that.
Yes,
We relate.
I think at the end we were like, oh, yeah, I think
Yeah.
you said, like, I love the Taylor bit. I was like, yeah, I had to, represent for the Swifties. And,
You
Yeah.
bonded
and
over
queers.
Taylor.
Yes.
Love that.
Yeah, it's fun being in a queer space and doing some queer comedy. I know that's some of your set gets into some of those topics as well.
Yeah, I do a lot of comedy about like queer material. I'm bisexual, but I originally came out as lesbian when I was young, and I have a bit of comedy about that switch, like realizing that I'm also into men, which was a huge disappointment for me. It's really a tick in the whole queer identity. I try to get away from it as much as possible.
That's great. And you talk a lot too about dating and a lot of the experiences that you've had in that process. But when did you realize that was something that not only people related to, but it's just funny?
Yeah, I was actually a bit scared starting out to do queer material because I wanted to be relatable and be mainstream for a wider audience. But I did have some stories in me because I went to a Christian school growing up, and I came out as a lesbian there. And some of the things that were said to me at that school was not necessarily hurtful, but really, really judgmental at the time. And I didn't think much of it because I've always just had a very strong sense in myself that like nothing was wrong with liking girls.
Was that from peers or from teachers?
I
or-
have no idea where that came from. I watched the L Word growing up, and
No, but who
Okay,
was giving
Howard.
you the kind of bad feedback?
oh yeah, that was from teachers and fellow students.
So everybody, like whether they were your age or not, couldn't relate.
Yeah, there was
Not
like
every-
a
not
divide
everybody,
in the
but,
class. Like
yeah.
half of them were really Christian and half of them were not per se. But the Christian kids were not liking it, but I think a lot of them were in conflict with it because they're also in the modern world. Like when I came out to my best friend at the time, she told me that I'm not going to judge you for being into girls because I know that God will.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Yeah.
Like it was going so
mentioned
well
this-
until that last
Yeah,
few words.
but I was also 14, so I was like, oh, it's so sweet. She's not judging me. I really
Yeah.
felt that. And the first time I said that comment out loud in a stage, I just wanted to try it out, see what the feedback would be. And it's just a direct quote. I've done nothing to it. It got one of the biggest laughs that I've ever gotten. And that was really, really freeing to hear that sentence in another perspective and hear that people found it really funny. Also kind of annoying that one of the best jokes I have is something I've not written. I'm just repeating what someone else said.
Right. Do you get? You should, give her the credit for that.
No, I've changed her name, of course. I'm not
good,
going to mention her.
She doesn't deserve it. Yeah.
No, but it's on my Instagram, and I feel like she's following me, and I feel like she would know herself in that one.
She'll know.
Yeah.
Are your family Christian?
No, they're not. No, I went to normal school first, and I got a bit bullied there, not being kind of cool. And I think like when I had to make the move and I wasn't cool, my parents like looked at the Christian kids. I was like, that's a space for her where she might have a chance. So I went there from the 4th grade and up. So I was like, I don't know, 10 or something when I got there and finished primary school at the Christian school.
Is there a uniform you have to wear for those?
No.
Okay.
A lot of people wore cross necklaces and stuff.
And at what age did you come out?
I was 13, 14. I think I knew when I was 13 and then I came out at 14.
And you also received judgment from teachers at the school?
Yeah, I haven't done that in comedy yet, but I talked to my, what's it called? You have like a main teacher in Denmark, like a klasselærer.
Mm-hmm.
And I sought advice with her, like, hey, I want to come out to my peers. Like, can I do that? And she advised me not to do so because she was afraid if the other kids knew, they would probably judge me because I was going to hell.
Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
So she actually warned me, like, don't tell them. They might not want to speak to you if they know you're going to hell.
Oh, Jesus.
Again, I feel like these examples are giving you like, it starts off nice, but then it just ends with a hammer to the
Yeah,
head.
but that's like a lot of at least the Christians I knew were like very, very friendly, very polite. But then like I get talked about at the home, but I wasn't aware of that. I was just delusional growing up, I think. So I didn't really log into like what they were actually like taking distance to me. Like a lot of the girls were told that they couldn't like play with me anymore. I was having a job with one of them. We were cleaning the halls and sports halls and stuff before school, and she wasn't allowed to meet up with me before.
I wonder what would have been your experience at a non-Christian school as coming out, because in Denmark it feels very like welcoming to the queer community, at least compared to the U.S. So it's, I mean, I think Christianity can apply in all these different situations, no matter what country you're in. But it seems like, I wonder what would it have been accepted more at like a Danish public school, or
It probably would. At least I feel like advising kids not to come out is very frowned upon.
Right.
And if it had happened at like any other religious school, people would have gone insane for it. But there is this like safe space with Christianity that people are not ready to talk about. Like I put my material in Danish up where I joke about this and people get mad.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not even saying anything bad about Christianity or like doing jokes about.
you're just literally
their
like
religion.
quoting exactly
Yeah.
what you were told, you know?
Yeah.
I think, in the U.S., I think it's maybe a bit like Denmark too, where I think it depends where you come from. I think sometimes we do live in a city, we do live in the capital region, and it may not be everybody's experience everywhere. And I think that it also maybe depends on, of course, the environment, but there's different people in, say, the LGBTQ spectrum that may have it more difficult, especially when it comes to gender identity and things like that as well, where maybe there's an image of a lot of progressive attitude, but that's not everybody's lived experience too.
Right, of
No.
course. Do you feel like it's therapeutic in a way where you're like, when you get that resonance from a joke, from something you've lived, and you're like, yeah, that was crazy, but like I can kind of laugh at it now. Of course,
Yeah, I
like,
definitely get that like backup that it was crazy because I was never like truly affected by it. I was just, as I said, delusional growing up, and I've always known that like there's nothing wrong with liking girls. I think actually I was kind of relieved, or like I was excited about discovering that about myself because I was like, oh, this makes me interesting. So I was quite happy about it. But it is really, really nice to receive that feedback now on stage where people laugh about it and like be confronted with like, yeah, it was crazy. And like everyone here agrees that it was a crazy thing to say.
sounds like there's a lot of different themes and elements, and then you said, then you discovered you like men, unfortunately, and so that's a whole other thing that's like kind of probably comedy gold in the room.
And such a funny way to frame it too, yeah.
Yeah, but it is such a disappointment for me, especially like coming out at a Christian school and like getting resistance from that. So I became like more stubborn and was like, I'm really into girls then. Like I did all of this coming out and like overcoming people's judgment. So I stood really firm on it, and then I fell in love with a man, and I was like, fuck. Fucking hell. They were right. I did have to meet Jesus. No, but he had long hair, so I feel like that's an
Oh my
excuse.
God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love those long-haired Jesuses.
Yes.
So, it sounds like you talk a lot about like kind of dating, sexuality. We often get dating questions. How would you describe Danish dating habits to someone who didn't grow up here?
Oh my God, I dated so much last year. I'm so sick of it. I feel like, at least from my experience, it is very like professional setting to date someone. It's very much like meet up at a bar or a coffee house, have a beer or a coffee together. And like that setting of meeting a stranger, sitting face to face in a bar, I hate that. Really do. It sounds like we're interviewing each other for a position of partner. And like everything they say that's kind of off from what I want, I'm like, it's never going to work.
Right.
It's never going to work. Like if they say something like, yeah, I've considered living outside of the city, I'm like, yeah, it's not us. And you would
Also, because you have access to so many, like, I guess with dating apps and things, is that where you meet people, right? And
Yeah.
then you have access to the general world, like so many more than you would just meeting someone in your town back in the day, like by happenstance, right? So I
Yeah.
think the criteria and the time is like, we don't have a lot of time. So
No,
it
there's
becomes a lot
always
more.
someone better. Like the grass is always greener somewhere. So like the tiniest of flaws in someone, you're like, on to the next one.
It's brutal when you're on the receiving end of that, though. I mean, maybe you have a
Yeah.
thicker skin. I like got together with my husband before dating apps. I think I'd had like one or two bad, like old school OkCupid or like whatever the old school
Yeah.
version of dating was, and I had some funny stories to tell. But I feel like I wouldn't fare well in the you're up against the entire world kind of thing but I also get how that would probably change your criteria.
I guess it is a little bit brutal, but I feel like both me and the other person goes into it with that mindset. So we're both not really invested.
Right. Yeah,
In
that's
each
true.
other.
So
It's
there's
like
like a
you meet
resilience
up.
because it's like
Yeah.
a muscle you build. And is it men and women that you've been exhaustively dating?
Last year, I've only focused on dating women. Like,
Okay.
I want to get back now.
To your roots.
Yes.
An originalist.
Yes. I also stopped drinking alcohol last year. And since that, I haven't been with a man. So I'm like, I'm a bit confused.
Causation isn't correlation, or is
No,
it? Yeah,
maybe drunken sexuality is a thing.
It kind of sounds like the Danish dating experience is the pretty common dating experience. Like, I don't think there's anything like in particular. It sounds like it's just the interview process, There's
Yeah.
not like anything specific to call out.
No,
I've heard
it's
people are
horrible.
going on dates by like going on walks and things like that, and to me that just sounds.
Yeah, that's
that
a very
sounds-
Danish cliche.
yeah,
Go around the
yeah.
lakes in
Go around
Copenhagen.
the lakes, yes,
that is like the
Okay.
classic date to do.
The walk and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I just find it so inorganic. Like you were saying about meeting at a coffee shop, meeting at
Yeah.
a bar. Like, me and my wife, we love each other. But if we're not in the best mood, meeting up and sitting opposite that person and drinking a coffee, like you're not going to vibe with each other. Do you know what I mean?
No, it's
like,
really hard to have that like profound conversation in that setting.
yeah.
I think it's more fun to do an activity together where you have to like solve a problem and then you kind of learn a different angle of their personality instead of like, what do you like to do? It's like if you're walking, at least you're kind of parallel doing something
Yeah.
together, like at the very least, But
Distract
I feel
me
like
from the stranger.
I prefer like an activity kind
But
of
I
thing.
tried that as well
was
last
that
year. I was
too
like,
much?
okay, I need to do something at least that I think is fun to do
Yeah.
because then I'll look forward to that. And then I took a woman out to do mini golf together. But I became like so quickly too invested in the mini golf. That was too fun of an activity
nice
to
to know
do.
about you, but I really got to get like my two-par on
Like
this.
she was really trying to flirt, and I was like, I gotta concentrate.
That's
Got a hole in
Fitting
one.
this. Yeah.
That is funny.
Yeah, exactly. And I won. And like after the date,
Got the trophy.
Yeah, she told me that like this entire night I've just been thinking about wanting to kiss you, and in my head I was like, that is why you've lost. Like get in the
Competitive
game.
nature. Oh my gosh.
I only kiss winners.
Yeah. Like
And that's not
she
you.
met up at the date like for mini golf in like high heels, and I was like, oh, I got a good chance here.
We're golfing.
Yeah, like, what are you doing?
That's fantastic.
That's also good material, I'm sure, that you must talk about.
Yeah,
Like,
I do.
Okay, so you've thought of the activities. Amazing.
Yeah, it can't be too fun.
I guess speaking of weird things, is mini golf weird? What's the weirdest thing someone's said to you after one of your sets?
Great question.
There is like one guy who keeps coming at knock knock, and he knows I don't like him, so I don't care. Like he comments so much on people's sets, and he has no experience himself to do so. But like one time I did my material and I did stuff about like being bisexual and coming out, blah blah blah. Went quite all right that night. And then he pulled me aside afterward and he told me about Linda P, which is quite a famous Danish comedian here. And she, the first many years of her career, was a lesbian and did material about that. Then later she came out as bisexual and is dating a man now. So this guy pulls me apart and is like, hey, Cecilia, just want to tell you that whole bisexual thing you're joking about, it's been seen before. Don't know if you heard about Linda P.
Wow.
One
As
person
in, like,
has done
telling
this,
me,
so therefore
like,
no one else.
You can't do it.
Wow.
Like, what are you doing? If you didn't know, like, he was helping
Wow.
me.
That would
Oh,
never
I love
happen
that
in
when
another
they think
setting,
you're
would it?
helping.
No one would
No.
ever pull a guy off the stage and be
Yeah.
like, that's straight material you're doing.
Yeah.
But you already saw all of that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Conrad, you know how you're married to a woman?
It's been
that's
done.
been done.
It's been done.
It's been
Yeah.
done.
And also, like, Denmark is such a small country, so like 2 bisexuals, me, like, it's too much. It can't. There
No
can
room.
only
No
be
room.
one. Yeah.
I love when they think they're helping. Just some helpful feedback on your entire life. Like maybe he didn't think that. Maybe thought you were
He's
making it
just
up.
Super annoying. He also showed
Love
me
it.
at Comedy Zoo where I had like a really, really great set that night. And then he came to me being like, that was really good. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Because I've seen you a lot of times where it's been really bad. Like, it's really good that you
my
improved. And I was like,
This
why
is
are
actually-
you
Sounds like he
coming
went to
me?
your
Like,
school.
But it also like my musician friends that have traveled through Germany, for example, like that's exactly the feedback they get on their sets. So I
Yeah.
was like, where is this guy from? Because it'd be like, like your last album was better, but this was a nice performance. It's like,
gosh.
wow, thank you for this very direct feedback.
It's like, hey,
Yeah,
you know that
it
thing
is
you do
weird.
really successfully? Well, I don't do it at all, but I have a lot of critique.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And then, of course, you get the, like, as a female comedian, you get a lot of the, like, normally I don't find women funny, but you're quite good. And
No. Oh my God.
Okay, so that's not just something that happens in the United States.
No,
That's
that happens
universally.
everywhere. But I have a rule. If people say that to me, I try to, as many times as possible, to steal their lighter.
Oh, wow.
That's my tiny revenge. Like, if people say that to me in a bar, I will steal their lighter if they have one. Because that's such a little inconvenience for the rest of their night that I feel like it's a fair revenge for that.
It's great. You don't even smoke. You're like, I just
Yeah,
want to
yeah,
light some candles over
exactly.
here.
Needed to be hyggelig over
Yeah.
here. Wow.
I feel like whenever a female comedian goes on stage, there's already this energy in the room, like
Yeah.
in the guys' heads, where it's like she has to now prove that
Yeah.
she's really funny
Yeah.
to justify being there. As a guy can just walk up and be mediocre, and they're like, it was kind of good, And I
Yeah.
think it's a horrible conflict in comedy.
It is. I see it as a challenge more than like a conflict to do it. But I've been thinking a lot about what is this? And I think it's like what we expect of genders. So like if a man slips in a banana peel, that's quite funny. But if a woman slips in a banana peel, we feel bad for her. Like, is she okay? And that's quite a hard challenge when you do open mics and you want to test new material, where sometimes it will go wrongly and it will go bad. But if the audience then feels bad for you that you failed, whereas if a man failed, they would laugh at the failing, that's like a challenge to have that I'm still working on. Like, how can I use that to my advantage? Because there must be something funny in that as well.
Wow, I got philosophical.
deep, yeah.
I
this.
love that because
Yeah,
we were also
my whole banana peel philosophy.
Yeah. But we were gonna also on like what inspires you. Obviously, like you can pull from these
Banana
life
peels.
events, but yes, banana peels. But like taking something that is a challenge and turning it into like just figuring that out instead of having to reflect and process, and maybe that's part of it. And then just overcoming it. Impressive. Are there ever moments you kind of wish you weren't so open with your material?
I don't know. I don't really do privacy that much. Like, never really done so. I just blabber on. But I guess, like, especially like starting out and like some jokes, like now I reflect back on, like, I wouldn't do that today because it's just a bit too much and it's a bit too provocative just for the sake of being provocative. But I'm also like acknowledging that that's what happens when you start out at comedy and everyone goes through that
You learn
phase.
and you tweak.
Yeah, I'd rather give too much than give too little, I guess is my answer to that.
I think one thing we often hear about sort of the Danish ethos is that privacy is something that people afford one another. Is that something that you think is not the case with comedy?
I think a lot of people value privacy a lot, but I've never really got that. It is confusing to me.
Yeah.
Like, why do you want to keep so much of yourself private? Like, what are you going to talk with people about? And maybe that's also why it's hard dating, because people like have huge walls. I don't know. It's not for me. I like the attention, and I don't really have stuff that I don't want to talk about.
I do find that really interesting in Denmark, though, that Danes can be very reserved, but at the same time, there are other examples where you're the opposite. Like, go down to the Havnebell now, and you see people. Some people are naked going in the water. It's bloody April, and they're getting in the water all with curtains. When I lived in the UK, there's a time in the evening where my mum will stand up, walk to the window, and close all of the curtains in the house because now it's dark outside and the lights mean you can see in.
Oh,
I
never thought about that.
It's weird. It is now weird. Now I look back on it because here in Denmark, sometimes you look out the window, you're like, why have they closed their curtains? What's going on in there?
Exactly.
Something's happening because other people are just, curtains are open, but you don't have the feeling that someone's watching you.
No, but also like I don't care that much. Like if you want to watch.
Yeah. And even on stage, it's like, this is my life. These are the things that
And I
I'm
like
here to talk
watching,
about.
looking in through people's windows. So like I feel like if I watch, I gotta give a little as well. Like
You've been a mental health advocate. You want to tell us about that? And
I'm
tell the
impressed
listeners?
at how much you've found out about me.
Well, we've been looking through your bedroom window all of
Yeah,
yesterday.
okay,
So
true. Where
Those
I
curtains.
often advocate for mental health. Yeah, that is my dating life. And I did that before I started comedy. I had a year where I worked with Psykiatrifonden, the psychiatric fund here in Denmark, and was doing like public speaking, but it was during Corona, so it was like webinars. Where I, together with a scientist who like done research into families with mental illness, and then my mom was mentally ill when I grew up, and we did some public speeches together, educating like health professionals and professionals working with children. So it was like school teachers and nurses and doctors on like how to interact and what the effects can be as a child growing up with a mentally ill parents. How can that like be spotted in the child? What sort of challenges do they have? So that was just what I did beforehand.
that's incredible. But are you still involved with that?
No, not really. No.
You did your good work.
Yes, I paid my duties and now I've moved on.
I mean, with all that research, is there anything you wish people understood more about mental health in Denmark in particular? With
I
what
feel
you've
like
learned?
it's getting a lot better, like recent years. Of course, there still needs to be a lot of like founding to actually like back up all the good initiative. But I feel like people have been really educated over the past few years, and it's not as closeted anymore. Like speaking about privacy, people are really open about what diagnoses they have and what challenges that can face. And I also just saw that the World Health Organization, they released a new paper on mental illness where they acknowledge that it's a government problem. It's a public problem as much as it is for the individual. And I feel like that's really good, that we can start to have a conversation that a lot of things are systemic, that a lot of people are suffering from not fitting into like the work hours and the fast pace and whatever we've come to in this like incredibly grown society. Instead of always having the conversation be around what's wrong for the individual. So I feel like it's going in a really, really good direction right now.
There's that quote I really like, which is, it's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a sick society.
Oh,
I like
that's
that one, yeah.
deep. That's
Which
deep.
is nice. It's true though, right? Like
yeah.
if the pace of society is really fast and you're supposed to be working overtime and all this stuff and you have a stress breakdown
Yeah.
and people point at you and say, oh, you can't handle it, you're weak.
Yeah.
You're not to the standard. It's actually,
Yeah.
no, I live in this cripplingly
exactly.
intense situation.
Yeah.
On that note, as far as advice for others, is there any advice you would give a lot of our audience, or those who are moving here and maybe didn't grow up here, so aren't used to things like the system or dating or other things? Is there any advice you would give to somebody moving to Denmark for the first time, or maybe even that's been here for a few years?
I guess I would say like get a Danish friend to help you understand. No, to help you understand the system, because there's so much bureaucracy. There's so much you can do and have a right to. Also depends on where you're coming from, if you're an EU citizen or you're not an EU citizen. And a lot of like my Danish friends, I'm impressed with how much they know about all the stuff you can apply for. But I can imagine like if I moved to another country, I wouldn't know where to start with. Like if I wanted to register to be a student or whatever. Like in Denmark, there's so many steps to be taken because we're so digitalized.
Yeah.
So you have to like kind of figure out like how to get a profile and how to get your fucking mid-ID and like get that all started before you can actually do anything.
So appreciative of Danish friends that have
Yeah.
sort of like grabbed my hand at times and been like, no, you're not doing this right. You need to go here or you need to download this. And
Yeah, I
it's
guess like
usually
moving
helpful.
to another country is kind of like becoming a grandparent all of a sudden, because I feel like I've been helping my international friends in the same way that I'm helping my grandparents understand technology, because it's so integrated for me that like when I help my grandparents, I'm like, okay, so you get your mid-ID out, and they keep staring at me and I'm like, oh, okay, well, slow down. Okay, there's an app. Okay, an app is something you can have on your phone, and then we go from there and build.
It's funny that you say grandparent because that actually is more accurate because we always talk about feeling like babies, like
Yeah.
a brand new baby in a new place, but it really is like
Yeah, babies are
a
better
boomer
with apps.
/ grandparent that's like, how do I download this app? Why does it take 16 different steps for me to like underscrive? like,
And if somebody wants you to be their Danish friend, where can they find you?
Mostly at Comedy Zoo. Like I basically live there. I'm
Yeah.
going there after this, just hanging out and try to be there, just chill. That is the best option to meet me. Otherwise, I live in Amma. Have a look.
Have a look through my
Yeah, look
no
through the
curtains,
windows.
no curtain
Yeah.
windows.
Yeah,
And we'll have links to your social media.
I thought to my window.
and to your window. We will have
To
Google
her
Maps.
address.
picture, Google Maps.
Yeah, I live
Yeah.
on the 4th floor, so my
Ah,
there
like
we
you have
go.
to jump a bit far. But
Bring your telescope.
Fantastic. And of course, people can also find you on May the 6th, which is a Tuesday night.
and
at
on my
Comedy
social
Zoo.
media, of
And on
course.
social
Like
media.
contact me there. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so-
have no privacy, so ask.
Go right
Yeah.
into it. Yeah. Perfect. We'll have all that in the show notes and description. And Cecilia, thank you so much for joining us today. Introducing you has been a pleasure. And we can't wait to share more of you and hear more from you at our live show. And then
I am so excited for this live show.
Too.
I can't wait.
There's
Super
so
excited.
much stuff happening. Like I saw the plan. Like you guys have planned. Yeah.
Confetti cannons.
Yes.
T-shirt, hot dog guns.
T-shirt,
yeah.
hot dogs, everything, just
T-shirt,
whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. Everything
Buzzwords.
cool we're putting in. Hi.
Hi, hi.
Thank you all.
No, I think T-shirt, hot dog is great.
T-shirt, hot dog.
Did you want to say wet t-shirt competition?
No.